Hello everyone, welcome to StudyIQ. So we will continue our discussion on economy. We are in the module International Organization, right? So we started off with WTO and so far we have completed 7 sessions in this particular topic. And now here in this session we will be talking about regional trade agreements. So various regional trade agreements like preferential trade agreements I'll discuss, free trade agreements we'll discuss, everything we will cover related to custom union, everything we will economic union, okay? So everything will be covered, CECA, CEPA, okay, everything will be covered. So I'll take around 3 sessions for this. Then we will talk about World Bank, we will discuss about IMF, we will talk about BRICS, we'll talk about G20, G7. So all the important international organization will be covered, which is going to be helpful for your exam, okay? So the whatever can be asked in exam, we'll cover everything. We won't leave anything for chances, okay? So if you remember in WTO itself, we have taken around 7 lectures. So if you go for a quick recap of what all things that we have done, we have started off with GATT, General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. It came into effect from 1st Jan 1948, right? Then we have discussed about various rounds of GATT. 8th round was special, which is known as Uruguay round, because there were some new issues which were introduced in GATT. Till then it was only related to trade, okay? So the objective of GATT was basically to promote trade by reducing the tariff barriers. But in the 8th session or 8th round, which was known as Uruguay round, some new issues have been picked up like intellectual property issues, investment issues, agriculture issues, environmental issues, etc. So the talks break there. There was no decision or there was no consensus between developed and developing countries, and the then DG of GATT come up with draft final act, which is known as Marrakesh Agreement or Dunkel draft. With that, one of the most important provision was that the name and nature of the organization will change. So GATT changed to WTO. Okay, so the name changed, World Trade Organization, from General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. The nature will also change. It is now not only trade. Till then it was trade. Now intellectual property, investment measures, everything will be taken into consideration, or everything, all these issues will come in the domain of WTO. Okay, so the name and nature of the organization will change. So if you see, earlier it was just a loose organization, now it's a formal organization. So earlier if it was just an agreement, loose agreement, now it is a very formal organization. There was no judicial power before, now there is judicial power, okay? So then we have discussed about objectives, principles, etc. of WTO. What is the structure of WTO? The Ministerial Conference is the highest decision making body. Then we have talked about General Council, we have talked about TPRB, Trade Policy Review Board. We have also talked about Dispute Settlement Board. I've told you just before, there is a judicial power in WTO, right? Which was not there in GATT. That means if any member country violate any of the WTO norms, the affected country can sue that particular country who violated the norm in the DSB, and DSB have to give its decision within 18 months, okay? And the decision of DSB could also be challenged in the appellate body, but the decision of appellate body is final and binding on the country. Then we have discussed about various agreements of WTO. So WTO agreements we have done. And we have discussed about agreement on agriculture. There we have talked about a lot of discussions like market access, we have discussed domestic support, we have discussed AMS, aggregate measurement of support, and we have discussed about the developing countries and developed countries commitment for AMS. We have talked about blue box, amber box, green box, all these different types of subsidies we have covered. We have also talked about export subsidies and the commitments of developed and developing countries, okay? Then we have discussed about TRIPS, right? Trade related intellectual property rights. So I'm just talking about the brief of those WTO agreements, okay? So in TRIPS, we have talked about that the member countries have to give at least minimum protection to 7 intellectual properties, which are they? Patents, geographical indicators, copyrights and related rights, trademark, trade secrets, industrial design, and the layout of integrated circuit. Layout of integrated circuit means the capacitors, resistors, transistors, etc., and the connection between them. That's what you mean by the layout of an integrated circuit. So that's what we have discussed. Then we have talked about various other WTO agreements related to TRIMS. This was related to investment measures. This is nothing but trade related investment measures. There also we have discussed about tarification. We have talked about national treatment, a very important concept. Then Then we have talked about GATS, General Agreement on Trade in Service. This GATS and this GATT is different. Okay, there we have discussed about mode 1, mode 2, mode 3, mode 4 services. Okay, so all these done clear. Then we have also discussed about non-agricultural cases, right, in non-agriculture market access. So these are the 5 important agreements that we have discussed under WTO. Then we have talked about ministerial conferences separately. So almost all the ministerial conference, if you take, the discussions was basically based on this agreements, either related to TRIPS or related to investment or related to intellectual property or related to agriculture or related to service or related to non-agriculture items, right? So the agreements or the discussions which are going to come, then we have started off with, we have discussed the first one, Singapore issues. Okay, there I have told you that new issues have been introduced by US, European Union and Japan, which are related to competition policy, investment policy, government procurement, okay, trade facilitation. So all these are the new issues which were actually introduced in the very first round of WTO, that is known as Singapore issues. Then we have also discussed in detail about Doha development round, and I've told you why it is known as development round. Okay, so all the developing countries concerns we have discussed over there, and why it is still stuck, because if you remember, Uruguay round got stuck between developed and developing because there was no consensus, right? See here how the decisions are made. Decisions are made on the basis of consensus, not on the basis of majority or share. See, there are 2 blocks, developed countries and least developed countries or underdeveloped countries. Okay, these 2, least developed countries and developing countries. These 2 are one group and this is another group. So 2 groups were there. So if it is majority, obviously who is having majority? This group is having majority. So the decisions are not on the basis of majority. Decisions are not based on contribution or share also. If that is the case, only US itself will have huge share, right? So it is basically based on consensus. So if you remember, in the Marrakesh Agreement or in the Uruguay round itself, there was no consensus and the developing countries were actually forced to sign the Marrakesh Agreement. Otherwise, the only option which was left out to them is either to sign this agreement or opt out of the organization or leave out of the organization, and leaving out of the organization is not a wise decision. So the developing countries signed because there was a provision that the issues or the concerns of the developing countries will be solved, but that was not solved, and it was continued, and the same issues have been picked up here also. So here also it got stuck. There's no consensus. Okay, so we have discussed in all related related to export subsidies, agriculture subsidies, cotton subsidies, LDC packages. Okay, all those things we have discussed in detail in the session, the Doha development round. We have taken one session for that, and then after that we have talked about Bali Ministerial Conference. We have discussed about Nairobi Ministerial Conference, Nairobi packages we have discussed, and some of the concerns of this Doha development round is actually solved over there. So all those things we have discussed. Okay, so that's about WTO. So the most important international organization from this module point of view we have done in the 7 lectures. So if you have missed out any of the videos, or rather you should be watching all that 7 videos, then after that you don't want to read anything else for WTO. Okay, you will understand each and everything related to WTO. There we have talked about anti-dumping duties, countervailing duties, special safeguard mechanism, special product, all technical terms. Each and every technical terms is covered over there. Nothing extra is required to read if you attend that 7 sessions. 30 minutes videos, hardly will take 3.5 hours, just like attending one complete class. That's enough. Okay, so if you missed out, you can get those videos in this Telegram channel. This is my Telegram channel. All my videos over there. History is there, economy is there, complete economy is there, quantitative aptitude is there. Okay, I'll be doing ethics also. Then or you can get in touch with me in this Instagram, or you can see here, this is the Telegram channel. Join here for videos. You can get in touch with me. This is my Instagram ID, or these two are my Facebook ID. So you can get in touch with me in any of this. If you need any help related to your preparation, mentorship or guidance or test or regular classes also, the online classes of economy, history, etc. are already with StudyIQ. You can attend that classes. Apart from that, if you need any other help, you can get in touch with me. Okay, so let's get started with today's session. So today we are going to discuss about regional trade agreements. See, when we are discussing about regional trade agreement, it is actually a continuation of WTO. When we discussed about WTO, it is promoting multilateralism. If you remember, the first objective that we have discussed is related to promotion of multilateralism. So when we talk about regional trade agreement, it is a kind of regionalism. regionalism. It is a narrow concept. It is promoting regionalism between region like Asia, Africa, or India, Japan. This is what you mean by regionalism, like SAARC, etc. Okay, ASEAN. All these are regional trade agreements. I'll discuss various different types of regional trade agreements. Okay, but let's try to understand. When we discussed about WTO, it was multilateralism, or WTO was promoting multilateralism. Here it is a narrow concept. I don't say regionalism, narrow concept. Okay, so here regional trade agreements. So one, if you see, this is actually, the discussion is basically multilateralism versus regionalism. So if you remember WTO on the other side, so if let me make it here. So this WTO is basically promoting multilateralism. Okay, so basically that promoting globalization, right? So multilateralism. So this is clearly WTO, or you can say here globalization. So this discussion is like this: multilateralism versus regionalism. Okay, so it is basically for you to better understand the concept. You can understand in this way: multilateralism versus regionalism. See, which one is better? Always multilateralism is better. Okay, the reasons I'll tell you why multilateralism is better. What are the advantages? So if you see here the advantages, there is always a comparative advantage. Okay, and as per all economic theories, the less developed countries will get benefit out of globalization. Why? Because there is an equalization process. Okay, so the benefits will be passed on to the less developed countries always if there is globalization. So the less developed countries is likely to get more benefit because of globalization. But there is a threat also. We'll come to that threat because of it actually increases the vulnerability also. We'll come to that. So the advantage is the comparative advantage first. Comparative advantage. Then the productivity will increase, production will increase because the world trade is increasing. So the productivity as well as the production will increase. Productivity will increase, production will increase. So production increase means growth is there. That means unemployment can be reduced. Okay, that means poverty could be reduced. All these are the advantages. National income will increase. When national income increase, per capita income will increase. When per capita income will increase, the purchasing power of people will increase. So all these are considered as good situation. Okay, then optimum resource utilization. Optimum resource utilization. Okay, so what is the issue? Issue is, or the disadvantage, or the issue is actually the vulnerability. Now you're exposed to the world, right? So anything which is affecting, let's say US, will affect you also. Anything which will affect any part of the world may affect you also, because you are totally connected, right? So that's why when there was a subprime crisis, Europe, in America, European Union also affected. Even in India also, we got affected very badly, right? So issue is vulnerability. Okay, now as I have told you, as per economic theory, the developing countries will benefit because of globalization. The reason is there will be an equalization trend. Okay, so that is always like that only. Okay, so that's about multilateralism. Now here I basically want to talk about a theory because the discussion is related to this. I just told you what I mean by this and the advantages, right? So regionalism, so here it's a narrow concept, and we will see the theory of custom union. It is actually given by Jacob Weiner. Theory of custom union. Custom union is one of the, see, when we talk about free trade agreement, the different types, one among that is custom union. I'll discuss that in detail, but this theory related to custom union, see, RTA, the regional trade agreement, is actually having two effects. Okay, so what are the two effects? One is trade creation effect. So trade creation effect, it actually creates trade. Even if there is no trade between two countries, because of regional trade agreement, the trade can be created. I'll show you examples so that you'll understand. Second effect is actually trade diversion. Diversion of trade. What do you mean by that? Suppose we have trade with some other country, US. Now let's suppose we engage in FTA with Japan. So there is a possibility that now onwards we may not trade with US, we may trade with Japan. That's what you mean by trade diversion. Earlier okay, I'll show you with example. So for example, let's see, let's talk about the case of trade diversion first. Okay, that's That's what the negative one. Okay, then we will talk about trade creation. That is actually a positive impact. See, this is a positive impact. This is a positive impact. This is actually negative impact. When diversion of trade is there, what is actually happening is the inefficient country is actually getting the advantage over the efficient country. I'll show you how. Let's suppose this country A, country B is there, country C is there. Okay, so in country A, let's take the product P, PX is the product. So country A, the price of this product is, let's say, 10 rupee. Price is, let's say, 10 rupee. In country B, the price is 7 rupee. In country C, let's say price is 6 rupee. Okay, so not rupee, but we are trying to understand in terms of rupee. Okay, so 10, 7, 6 or dollar, whatever you want, this is just a unit, right? So 10, 7, 6. Now let's suppose if you are country A, since the price is so high, you want to import this. Okay, so let's suppose you normally charge a custom duty of 2 rupee, whether it is from C or B. So there is a duty of 2, right? So when you import from B, how much it costs for you? 9. When you import from C, how much it costs for you? 8. Now, which one you will prefer? You will prefer this one, right? Because it costs less. So the import from C will happen to A. So this is the normal situation. So you will import from C. So this is what actually the normal situation. Now see here, if you see, A is not efficient because A is taking 10 rupee to produce that. B is better than A but not better than C. C is the most efficient producer here because per unit output C cost very less. Okay, see, efficiency can be understood in this way. Per unit output, how much cost is there? So C is having less cost, that's why this price is 6. B efficient than A but not as C. So here the most efficient is actually C. Now imagine between A and B there is a free trade agreement. Okay, so now between B and A there is a free trade agreement. So that means this duty, a custom duty of 2 rupee you don't want to pay. So how much it will be the cost? This 7. Now 7. Earlier 9 when you need to pay the import duty, but now there is no import duty because of free trade. So now it is 7 rupee. So if you import from B, 7 rupee. If you import from C, there is no free trade. With C there is no free trade. So there is a import duty of 2. So from 6 it will be, as we have discussed already, 8. Now which one you prefer? You prefer 7 rupee, right? So what will happen? Earlier in the normal situation you will import from C because C is more efficient and the cost is very less. But now because of free trade with B, you are forced to, or you will actually import from B because that is beneficial. But you see here what is actually happening? The most efficient firm or the country is actually losing that advantage, right? So here, because of free trade, this is what you mean by trade diversion. Otherwise the trade would have been between A and C, but now because of free trade the trade is diverted between A and B. Otherwise, if this free trade agreement was not there, A will not buy from B, right? Because there is no advantage. You will only buy from C because it is more efficient, so the cost is less. So I hope you understood how trade is diverted. So this is actually the negative impact of this regional trade agreement. Okay, when you are signing this most of the regional trade agreement is related to free trade agreement only. Okay, there are preferential trade agreement, there are free trade agreement, there are custom union, economic union. All this we will discuss. The different types of regional trade agreement I will cover maybe in the next session if time will not be available, may not be available in this session. So I will cover that in the next session. But here just understand now how trade is created. So let's suppose that is actually benefit if trade is creating. Let's suppose another product. Let's take PY. Okay, so that is PX, now PY. So A, let's say the price of this commodity is 5 rupee. B, the price of this commodity, let's say 4 rupee. And C, the price is, let's say, 4 rupee. Okay, so here, now imagine this situation. A again is the least efficient here. B and C almost same. Now let's suppose there is an import duty of 2 rupee. Okay, so this 2 rupee import duty is there. So from B how much it cost? 4. From C how much it cost? 4. Okay, or 4 plus 2, 6 and 6. So in A it will cost 5 rupee only, but B and C, because of this import duty also added, despite the fact that B and C are better and efficient than A, you are not able to make a trade. Why? Because here it is 6 rupee. It is still loss for you because of the import duty, right? See, A is least efficient, B and C is better than A, but still there is no trade happening. Why? Because of the import duty. Now imagine the situation that A and B coming into a free trade agreement. Let's suppose there is a regional free trade agreement between A and B. Now this 2 rupee will not be there with B. So what will be the cost if you import from B? 4 rupee. In A it is 5 rupee. So there will be a trade creation now. I hope you understood this. So now the trade is created. Otherwise there was not trade. Now because of this free trade, the trade is created. See, if this free trade agreement was not there, there will not be any trade between these countries. Okay, because even if A is less efficient, A is happy because when you are importing from B and C, because of import duty, the cost is higher than A. Now since it is free trade, there is no import duty, so the price is actually coming down than A, so trade is created. Earlier, trade was diverted. The trade was there, but trade was between A and C. The trade initially was between these two, but because of free trade between A and B, the trade is now diverted. This is no more. Because it is not wise to import from C, you need to pay extra. So I hope you understood. This is what actually the theory given. This is actually the effects of regional trade agreement. So two effects: trade creation effect and also trade diversion effect. Both are possible. So what is actually government stand? Which one is better, multilateralism or regionalism? Or are we going with WTO or are we signing RTS? If you see, there is a considerable increase in number of RTS that we are signing, right? But the government stand is actually, the priority is for WTO. That means multilateralism. We are giving priority to this. And why regionalism? RTAs are actually the means to supplement this priority, okay, is to WTO, because some discussions, for example, Doha development round, that got stuck, okay, the discussion is not progressing, but you are discussing almost all the similar things in the regional trade platform, okay. So multilateralism is the priority, but we are moving towards RTS or regional trade RTAs basically to supplement this WTO, okay. The last decade, if you see, the regional trade agreements is considerably increased, okay. So the reason is basically this WTO is not able to progress further. The deadlock is there, especially after Doha development round. You know that in detail very well, so there is no point in discussing that. So let's quickly discuss about the advantages of RTA. Apart from that trade creation effect that we have discussed, there are certain other advantages also. So let's discuss about advantage of RTA, okay. So flexible and mutually beneficial terms. If it is WTO, there is a common agreement, okay. But here, if it is if let's suppose you are entering into a regional trade agreement between few countries or between 2 or 3 countries, then it will be flexible and it will be mutually beneficial. Anytime, any negotiations you can make, and that is an advantage for you, okay. So flexible and mutually beneficial terms. Okay, then there may be a political or strategic advantage because it actually will increase your voice in the big forums like WTO, G20, etc. So if there is a regional trade agreement, if you have a regional trade agreement block, a strong block is there, means that actually raise your voice, that actually help to raise your voice in the big forums like WTO, G20, G7, etc. Okay, so bargaining power or political, I'm just writing this only, political or strategic advantage. Okay, so basically what I mean to say is the member countries of regional trade agreements will actually get a better bargaining power in the bigger forums, WTO, etc. Okay, then it will supplement the multilateral trading system. It will always supplement the WTO. Okay, so supplement multilateral trading system, that means WTO. Now what are the disadvantages? Trade diversion, as I have told you. So there is a doubtful welfare effect because of trade diversion. Doubtful welfare effect due to trade diversion. Okay, now there is one more impact that is known as noodle ball effect. You sign this RTAs with many countries and the terms and condition may overlap. That is what you mean by noodle ball effect. So I'll just write this only, noodle ball effect. Okay, so basically large number of RTAs will overlap in terms of the terms, conditions, negotiations, the discussions. Okay, so the subjects and everything, there will be an overlap. So that's what you mean by noodle ball effect. You write it properly. When I'm writing with this pen, it is not proper here. Okay, so now let's see the trends. What is the trends? As I've told you, last 10 years, over the last 10 years, the past decade, the regional trade agreements have considerably increased. Okay, so trends of RTAs. So what are the trends of RTAs? So RTA participation increased last decade. Okay, you know, India's RTAs actually doubled and reached to 45. Okay, so India's RTAs doubled to, you know, 42 since mid 2000s, 45 since mid 2000s. From that time onwards, last over a period of, you know, 12-13 years, it actually increased so much. Okay, main reason, the deadlock in WTO, Doha development round, it was not able to reach any conclusion. Okay, so that is actually the main reason why we are signing this RTAs with most of the countries. Then another important trend is actually inter-regional RTAs are actually increasing. See, inter-regional means between Asia, Africa, etc. Okay, and what is the advantage? Because the resources are available in different regions, different resources are available, so you can make use of that resources. Okay, so that is one point that you need to write. Otherwise, when we talk about regional trade agreement, it is between region, right? For example, when it comes to Asia, ASEAN, SAARC, etc., these are regional, specific, clear-cut example of regional trade organization or regional trade agreement, SAARC. Okay, then ASEAN, etc. But like if you see Asia and Africa, that's what you mean by inter-regional trade agreements. Okay, so there is an increase in inter-regional trade agreements. So inter-regional trade agreements is actually increasing. Intra-regional trade agreement, there is no point in talking about that. Actually, regional trade agreement means it is within region only. That is what intra, right? So this is actually increasing, for example, Africa and Asia, etc. Okay, so resource allocation will be diverse. That is the advantage. Different types of resources in Africa, Asia. So the advantage is like this. Okay, now then if you remember when we discussed about WTO, I've told you the scope of WTO is increased over a period of time. Not only trade, intellectual property right, investment issues, trade in services, non-agricultural market access, right, competition policy, investment policy, government procurement, all these are actually incorporated in WTO. Similarly, the scope of RTAs are also increasing. Similar to WTO, intellectual properties rights are actually discussed under, you know, regional trade agreement. Investment measures are actually discussed under regional trade agreement. Okay, so government procurement discussion is there, competition policy discussion is there, agriculture, environment, all these discussions are there within regional trade agreement also. So basically the scope of RTAs consistently expanding, increasing. Okay, so this actually including all these dimensions as well. Then there are mega regional trade agreements that also we will discuss. Mega RTAs like RCEP, TTP, okay, TTIP, etc. Okay, so all these negotiations are there. So RCEP is basically Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. TPP, this is Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP, like that. Various mega regional trade agreements is there. We will be discussing about this in the coming session. So in the next session, in tomorrow's video, we will be talking about the different types of RTAs. Okay, so we will discuss about types of RTAs. We will start with preferential trade agreement. There I will discuss about SAARC, SAFTA, okay, etc. So after this we will talk about free trade agreement, okay. So what is the difference between PTA and FTA we will see. We will also discuss about custom union, we will discuss about common market, we will talk about economic union, that means economic and monetary union, okay. So all these will be covered in the next session. Then if time permit, we'll also see CECA, Comprehensive Economic Cooperation. So Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement, CECA. Okay, we will see CEPA, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. We will see BTIA, BIPA, Bilateral Trade and Investment Agreement, Bilateral Investment Promotion and Protection Agreement, BEPA. Okay, then we will see RCEP, as I've discussed, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, the Mega Trade Agreement. Then here we have discussed TPP, we will discuss TTIP. All these will be discussing in the coming session. Okay, so I hope you understood this session. If you have any doubt, you can get in touch with me here. This is my Instagram ID, or you can join the Telegram channel. You'll get all my videos over there. Okay, so that's about the session. I hope you understood everything that we have discussed today. If you have any doubt in any of the videos that we have discussed so far, you can get in touch with me here. That's my Instagram ID. Okay, or you can join the Telegram channel. You will get all my videos over there. Everything is there. Or you can see here, this is the Telegram channel, or this is the Instagram ID. These two are my Facebook page. You can get in touch with me in any of this. If you want to learn economy with me, or history with me, or general studies, any subjects, you can, if you need regular classes, you can get in touch with me, or the online classes are available with StudyIQ. You will get all those classes. Still, you will get my YouTube videos in this Telegram channel. Okay, so I hope you understood everything that we have discussed. So see you guys. Thank you.